it's one thing having massive goals and really listening to David share the goals. We all have goals in life, but sometimes our goals aren't the goals that we really want them to be. You know, I certainly in my own life, I've had times when my ladder's been up against the wrong wall. I've thought I've wanted something, and I've actually worked quite hard to it. I've maybe not done some of the actions, but I have worked hard on it. But there are some goals that you either procrastinate on or you don't actually do. And what I want to talk about today is something that has totally transformed my life. Igniting the fire within is quite a big promise, but it's how do you light up yourself to achieve your goals? And motivation is something that is personal to each of us. So what motivates David is different to what motivates me. What motivates each person in this room is your own. So it's how do you light your own fire? And, you know, how do you climb the mountains? How do you do the things you want to do? You know, how do you get Barack Obama to be your mentor? Well, I think it has to come from inside us. And the company I founded is called Full Potential Group, and I've spent 20 years helping people realize more of their potential, and probably 30 years personally doing stuff to try and be the best I can be. So I've walked on fire and I've done lots of things to help me achieve my goals. And then just over 5 years ago, I was diagnosed with quite aggressive breast cancer. And I'm someone who's done all the stuff. I was living quite a healthy life at the time, and it really shocked me. And it made me question my goals, and it made me question my life, and it really made me think, you know, what do I really want? You know, I didn't know how long I had to live, but what do I want in that time? Because you realize that life is really precious. And during that time, somebody asked me to think about what motivated me, and I actually did a motivational map profile, which I'm going to talk to you about this morning. And I thought, well, I know what motivates me. Can we have a show of hands? How many people feel they know what motivates them? Some people, half, 40% maybe, okay? And maybe you're hedging your bets because you don't know what's going to come. But I thought I knew what motivated me, and when I did my profile, some of the things that came out were definitely what motivated me. But I had some quite significant shocks and wake-up calls. And I spent a lot of time focusing on what really drives me, but I hadn't thought about what demotivated me. And some people like to move towards goals and have things that really fire them up, but sometimes people like me like to run away from things that demotivate them. And I hadn't realized it, but I was doing a lot of things in my life that were actually really to do with the stuff that demotivated me. I was making myself do it. I was shoulding on myself, which as coaches we always say, never do that. Now, sometimes you have to do stuff to make it happen and get it done, but in an ideal world, if we do the things that motivate us and we focus on that, it gives us energy. So what I want to talk about today is how can we use our motivators and the things that fundamentally fire us up to do things simpler, better, faster. You know, in your industry, it is all about simpler, better, faster, and often cheaper. So it's how do we do that for ourselves? You know, how can we do the goals that David's talking about, but do them easily? And I think if you know what motivates you, then that can help. So I'm going to talk about 3 things today. I'm going to talk a little bit about motivation and what it is and how you can use it to drive your goals. Then I'm going to look at 9 motivators. And if you've got your conference bags with you, this is just a bit of a preamble, but there is a set of cards in there which I am going to talk about in a bit. So this is just an opportunity to find them if you want to play with me as part of this. So we're going to look at 9 motivators, and I'm going to get you to think about what do you think motivates you. And once you understand your motivators and what really drives you, is what are you going to do about it? How can you press some hot buttons that will really genuinely make a difference to you? And part of my thought for today is that if you understand what motivates yourself, you can also start to get an idea of what might motivate your colleagues, what might motivate your customers, what might motivate suppliers, and use it in quite a broader scale. And the good news for David is that we did some research last year on the most motivated and the least motivated people in the UK. And age 51 is the most motivated person in the UK. Yay! But I was really shocked. Any idea on what the least motivated age was between its working population, between the ages of 16 and 65? 23, that lady was very warm there. 25. Yeah, getting really hot. The least motivated age came out at 20. Now, I was really shocked by that. Now, you can say maybe expectations are too high, maybe, the way the world is going is impacting people. But for me, part of standing on this stage is to motivate every single person in this room or get you to understand what really drives you. But equally, how can we help everybody else? And how can we help people coming into the workforce to actually be aligned around what motivates them and what demotivates them so they can really energize and be the best they can be? Motivation is energy. So we're talking about what is your energy. It comes from the Anglo-Norman term motive, which is, means drive. So we're looking at our inner drivers, because it's our inner drivers that determine what we think about, how we feel and how we act, and whether we achieve our goals or not. So I agree with David about it's not about smart goals, but it's about having the goals that are aligned with our energy and what motivates us. And when our goals are aligned by that, and we're energized to do them, and we believe in them deep inside us, that's what makes the difference. And in effect, motivation connects the head and the heart. And I think the people who often get their motivators wrong are often people who are quite intellectual, and they're very good at thinking, but they're less aware of their feelings. And when we're looking at our inner drivers, it's your feelings. It's what makes you really feel, what gets you out of bed in the morning. And having profiled personally myself about 2,000 people, but having motivational maps, we've profiled about 20,000 people in total so far. And I'm always shocked when I'm running workshops or team days when we're looking at motivations that about half the people are wrong around what motivates them. And I think that's quite scary. And I think if you don't know really what motivates you, how can you achieve your goals, or how can you make it simpler, better, faster? I love this quote by Stephen Covey. Motivation is a fire from within. And if someone else tries to light the fire under you, chances are it will burn very briefly. Now, the good news is that we're responsible for our own motivation. No one else can light that fire from within. It's our own choice. And so it's a choice we make. But our choices are easy if we understand fundamentally what's driving us. The bad news is that you can't make anyone else be motivated. But what you can do is if you understand what drives someone else, or you get a sense of what their hot buttons are, you can fan the flames of their motivation. So you can't make anyone motivated, and those of you with children in the audience, you'll know, you can't make them do something if they don't want to. But if you understand what drives them and where it's coming from, and create the conditions for them to excel, then they can motivate themselves. So what I want to talk about this morning is how can you understand what motivates you so that you can drive yourself, but how can you create the conditions that help other people excel too? And, there's lots of research on benefits of motivation and engagement. And it's sort of common sense, really. If you've got people coming to work or customers coming into stores, if you've got people who are highly motivated and highly engaged, they're 50% more likely to achieve their performance targets. They're more likely to give you that discretionary effort, to work that extra bit or to do that extra bit of caring around what you might want. And also, the best companies at really engaging people achieve 4.5 times the revenue growth. So with all the change that's going on in the world, if we can go back to some basics around our energy and what drives us, and we can really use our own energy to our advantage, A, we're going to find our goals easier and our targets easier to achieve, but B, we can make everybody better off in the process. Because exactly as David says, it has to start with why. And our motivators are our why. Sometimes we look at the goals and what we have to achieve, and we spend time on how we might do it. But if we don't understand our why, if we don't understand what really drives us and motivates us, then our goals become really, really difficult to achieve. So we're going to start now with why. And why are you fired up? Because you can have the best direction, goals written down. You can have your plan against those. Companies have got their strategies and their vision, and they have clear direction and goals. And you can be the most talented person, or you can have the gifts to be able to achieve the goals that you want to achieve. And you can have a team that's really capable, and you can coach and mentor and develop your team to deliver the goals. But if there's no energy in the tanks, if there's no fuel there, if people don't want to do it, you're going to go nowhere. And if you don't fundamentally want to align your goals with your energy, you're not going to do anything. So I would say that from a leadership point of view, motivation and energy and understanding not just what drives you, but what drives your team or what drives your company, what drives your customers, is a good 60 to 70% of your role. Yes, you've got to have the goals and the direction and to build the capability and support that. But if there's no energy in the tank, we're all wasting our time. So let's look at how we can thrive, and I want to share some things now around motivation. And the work I'm going to talk about comes from a book called Mapping Motivation, written by James Sale. Very proud to say he's British, comes from Bournemouth. And again, he's an academic, spent 10 years looking at motivation, and he's looked at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, the Enneagram. He's also looked at Edgar Schein's career anchors and a whole lot of different tools around motivation. And what he's come up with is something that is actually quite simple, but I think it's the simplicity that makes it powerful. So I want you to think for a minute, how motivated are you feeling right now? Okay? Because when we look at motivation, there are 3 routes to it. So part of what motivates people is doing things that suit your personality. So if you think for a minute, to what degree am I doing something that is suiting my personality? How many of you have done personality profiling or get a sense of that? Well, because this links really nicely with that. So if you're doing a job that suits your personality, good, tick in the box. But nobody gets out of bed in the morning because of their personality. We get out of bed in the morning because of what motivates us. And the other 2 aspects are really important. So the second one, self-concept, is a phrase that was coined by Jung. And what he means by self-concept is what we feel about ourselves, what we believe about ourselves, how we see ourselves. So if you're doing a role that suits your personality and you believe you're doing a good job, you see yourself in a positive light, you're going to be more motivated. But you also need to have the 3rd bit in play. Now, especially going through lots of change and restructuring that a lot of organisations have been through, future expectations can sometimes be quite challenging. So if you feel quite optimistic and positive about the imminent future, and you've got a healthy self-concept and you believe in yourself and you're feeling quite confident and feel you're in a good place, and you're doing something that suits your personality, you'll have a really high motivation score. We have a show of hands of people that feel they're probably 70% motivated or more. Come on, there must be more people in here. I don't think you'd come to a conference if you weren't really motivated. Yeah? Thank you. Now, the thing about motivation is it captures you at a moment in time. Because unlike a personality profile, where your personality evolves but very, very, very slowly, because when we look at motivation, we're looking at someone's self-concept and we're looking at their future expectations. Both of those can be quite dynamic. So our motivators can change. But when we start thinking about motivation, for most of us, our motivators are relevant for a sort of a 1 to 3 year period, usually. And what we do when we're mapping motivation is we actually get a motivation score for how motivated you are. Now, for those of you that put your hand up and said you were 70% or more motivated, having profiled 10,000 people as part of the piloting of this, the average motivation came in at just under 60%. Now, for those of you in your head, if you thought, well, I'm you know, I'm about 60% motivated or 35 to 60% motivated, you know, we call that the risk zone because there's a risk to your energy if you're not over that 60%. And I spend my life trying to get as many people as possible, ideally into that optimal zone of 80% or more. Because if you're 80% or more motivated, then it's easy to achieve your goals. Or you're halfway there because you've got the energy to do it. If you're in that middle bit, and if your mind, when I asked the question, you thought I'm about 65% motivated, then that 60 to 80%, we call it the boost zone because you just need a few small boosts that can make a big difference. So just thinking about what motivates you, we sort of profile organizations and look at different levels of motivation. But the question here is, if you think about a significant team that you're a part of, is that team more motivated than you individually or less? Now, if we could profile your team and add all the scores up, would they come up with a higher score than you personally, or would you be more motivated than your team? Now have a show of hands of people that feel, if you think of a significant team, your motivation is probably higher than the overall team motivation. People at the back, yes. A few at the front, yes. Yes, some smiling faces, yeah. If you've got team members here, you sort of trying to judge each other. Remember, don't make assumptions. Now, there's good and bad in this. You could argue to be a great leader and a great manager, it's better to be more motivated than your team because you create the conditions where people excel. But I could also argue the opposite. If you've got a highly motivated team, it doesn't matter if you're having a bad day because they keep the energy up. But the point here is just being mindful of, are you someone that wants to lead the energy and drive the energy and take personal responsibility for your motivation, or do you want to really motivate your team so that they can drive it? So when we get into the nitty-gritty of this, what gets you out of bed in the morning? Some people, what drives them is relationships. It's the people they meet, the teams they're a part of, the customers that they want to help. It's the feelings that they get from the things that they do in their lives. So if you're motivated by relationships, or you might know people who are motivated by relationships, you'll probably end up choosing the green cards in this pack. So some of us are driven by relationships. Some of us are good at relationships, and we're competent at relationships, but that isn't what motivates us. So there'll be other people in this room who are motivated by achievement. You get fired up by goals, by targets, by projects that you can deliver against. Yeah. And it might be achievement to do with work. It might be achievement to do with your golf score or your running score or something else. But someone who's achievement orientated likes to feel that they can make things happen, get things done, make progress on something. And you may well, if that's not you, you may well think about people in your team or colleagues that you know who are really driven by that. And if they don't have a sense of achievement or they don't have a goal or a target to aim for, they can lose their energy and their motivation quite quickly. The third group of people are motivated by what we call growth. Now, when we say growth, what gets you out of bed in the morning is being able to maybe grow yourself or develop yourself. It might be to grow a business or to grow a new idea that you've got or create a new product or do something that is about what could be possible. So if you're growth orientated, you tend to, what lights your fire and puts a light in your eye, tends to be things that could be possible, quite future orientated. You're excited about ideas in the future. They're not here now, but that's what excites you. You like to have big visions. You like to have possibility of what could be. If you're achievement orientated, you're more likely to really get fired up by the here and now and what's just in front of you, but relatively realistic. Okay? So the SMART goal thing, but liking to have things that are out there that you can achieve. If you're relationship orientated, you're likely to be slightly more about protecting the past, about wanting to preserve what's been built up. So relationship-orientated is slightly past-orientated, get nice warm feelings about the things that they've got in their lives and in their work. Achievement is more about the here and now, and growth is much more about the future. Now, have a show of hands of people that feel they're potentially growth-orientated. Yeah, quite a lot of you in the room. Achievement. It's like a band down the middle for achievement. Relationships. So we've got quite a nice mix in the room. And I think sometimes people are shocked when they get the profile and it's not quite what they think it is. Quite often, some people will say, I'm achievement motivated, and then they actually come out as being strongly growth because it's actually something bigger than themselves that they want to achieve, and it's further out in the future. Some people tend to think they're relationship motivated and they're good at relationships, but actually that's not the thing that lights their fire. So we're going to pick at this a little bit more detail, and this is where the cards come out. So as you'll see, there are 3 different motivators in each of the categories. And if you want to play with me, I'm just going to go through and explain each one. And as I'm talking about them, if you can, I'd like you to try and get them in an order. So, and you may well have a mix of cards. So you might have, at the top for you, you might have one red one, one blue one, and one green one. They could be mixed, or you might have different banks of the colours. But first of all, on the relationship motivated, the first one we have is the hand picture, and it's the defender. Now, some people have quite a high energy around predictability, safety, stability, okay? And if you think about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, it's that safety need. And for some people, they might have it early on in their careers, or they might have it later when they have a family and suddenly they want that safety. But some people have it throughout their lives. It's something that is genuinely important to them. And it fires them up because they feel safe, because they feel that things are predictable. I often say that's a bit of a Marmite motivator. Some people either really love it or they really don't like it. Okay? So just think about where that is for you. The next one is the friend motivator. Now, if you have a high motivation around friend, then you like that sense of belonging and fulfilling relationships with people. You like to feel the connection. And if there isn't a connection there, you can get really demotivated. So it's about belonging. You like to belong in a team, you're probably quite socially orientated, and that what gives you a buzz is really feeling those fulfilling connections with people. The last one in the green section is the star. And if you have high star, then respect, social recognition, being known and recognized for what you do and what you bring to your company, what you bring in your life, is important to you. You like to be seen in a visible way sometimes, to have your name on the project or the work that you're doing. Now, some of you might have quite high star and feel like, yes, respect and recognition is important to me, or you might think, oh, that person in my team, that's probably really important to them. So those are the green relationship motivators. Then we move on to the red ones, and quite a number of you, especially down this middle band of the room, had quite high red motivators. So the first one is the director. Now, if you have high director driver, then you like to have control and influence over things. You like to be able to be important in the critical decision making. You could get really demotivated if you feel that you're not allowed to make the decisions you want. Because directors like making decisions, they like a sense of control, they like to be able to drive things forward in a way that suits them. Okay? So if influence is important to you and having a sense of control, you could have high director. The next one and I think there's probably quite a lot of people in the room that might have this one, is the magnifying glass picture, and it's the expert motivator. Now, if you have high expert, you like to seek knowledge. You know, you like to learn new things. You know, if you've done the work with Dan Pink, it's the mastery one. You know, you'd like to be a master of something. Now, the expert often likes to become a specialist in a particular area of expertise, and they want to be even better at it. Okay? So if you have high expert, you know, the chances are you may well have come to this conference because you want to learn from experts, you want to mix with experts, you know, you might love going training and development or watching TED Talks, that sort of thing. Or equally, you might like spreading your expertise. So if you have high expert motivator, you could be a great coach or mentor. So how important for you is expertise? Because remember, we're not saying, are you an expert, but is it what gets you out of bed in the morning? Do you want to spread that expertise? Do you want to learn more? And then the last one on the red is what we call the builder motivator. Now, the builder is the most commercially orientated of all the motivators. And I think sometimes sort of, especially less experienced managers, when they're looking at really wanting to keep their best staff and they're wanting to really support their team, often the thought is, I'd like to pay them more. I don't want to lose this talented person. I better pay them some more money. Now, if they have a high builder motivator, then maybe you do need to pay them more, because the builder strives for above average standard of living. You know, they like to be doing well financially, usually. But that's only one of 9 motivators. So I think sometimes people spend money trying to keep someone in employment and pay them a little bit more, when actually one of the other motivators is more important for them. So if you suspect you have high builder, then you probably really enjoy performance-related pay. You know, you like to work in that competitive environment where bonuses come through. But for some people, that's a turn-off, and that isn't what motivates them. And I always remember I was sort of going through a retail graduate training program years and years ago now. And when I was in my sort of first placement, I was really doubting. I wasn't sure if I'd made the right career choice and whether I was in the right job. And I went in to see my boss and said, you know, look, I'm not sure if I've made the right decision here. You know, I don't know if I'm doing the right role. And he said, oh, you're doing brilliantly. You know, your category's really expanding. You're doing a great job. And a week later, he called me in and gave me a bonus. Now, I should have been really pleased with the bonus, but I was questioning my own why. And I actually used the bonus and bought a ticket to Australia and went traveling to try and sort my life out. Because I wasn't motivated by builder. I didn't understand. I wish I'd known this stuff then, because I would have made better career choices earlier on. But if you have high builder, then the money is important to you. Moving on to the blue cards. The first one is the sort of paint palette thing, which is the creator. Now, some people have really high need to innovate, to be creative. And they get bored if they can't change things. Creator likes continuous innovation, always improving things, always changing things. Okay? Again, this tends to be either very high in people's motivators or actually really low, because actually they don't mind about that. Remember, it's not, are you good at it? It's, is this something that really lights your fire, gives you energy? Do you like to be innovative? Do you like to think outside the box, not inside the box, as we were speaking about earlier? So if you're someone that's constantly wanting to make things better, constantly wanting to improve things, and loves solving complex problems, you may well be really driven by the creator. The next one is the spirit. Now, this links to Dan Pink's autonomy. How much do you have a desire to be a free spirit? If you have high spirit, you love independence, freedom. You like to be able to make your own decisions. The spirit hates being micromanaged. Likes the independence and freedom to do their own thing when they want. Okay? So is spirit important to you? I was working with a retailer where the team, when we looked at the team profile, every member of the team had really high spirit in their top 3. I thought, oh my gosh, that team's going to be a nightmare to manage because they're all free spirits going off and doing their thing. But then I actually saw the leader's profile and he had the highest score on spirit than anyone I've ever met. So he loved that freedom and autonomy, and he'd actually, without realizing it, recruited a team who had similar motivators to him. So for some people, that freedom of spirit, making your own decisions is really important. And the next one, final one, is the one that we call the searcher, which is like the little compass logo. And if you have high searcher, it's about meaning, making a difference. You like to do things with a purpose. You like to feel like you're adding value, doing things that feel worthwhile. And you can get very quickly demotivated if you think you're wasting time on stuff that doesn't matter. So if you have high purpose, it's about the greater good of things. It's about wanting to do things that really help other people often. People with high searcher often are the most customer orientated of people because what drives them is wanting to make a difference to other people. So when I had my sort of breakthrough moment, when I did my own profile, my bottom motivator was director. And I'd founded Full Potential Group, and I was supposedly in control and driving the business and being the responsible one. And I realized that it was totally demotivating me. And I wasn't out and about doing a lot of speaking because I was behind the scenes running the business and meeting clients, which I enjoyed, but I wasn't actually doing the stuff that really filled me up. I've got very high spirits, so I like being out and about. And I like every day being different. But I also want to make a difference, so that searcher for me is really important. And so I'm much more fulfilled now, standing in front of you, spreading some things that hopefully for some of you will resonate and make a difference, or allow you to go and make a difference with other people. I feel like I'm living my purpose more. And having seen my profile, it gave me more of a reason to focus on my top motivator and think, well, if search is top for me, how can I reorientate what I do in my work and my life around it? And if direct is really not important to me, why am I directing stuff? You know, who can we recruit? How can someone else do some of the things that really don't light my fire? And it gave me the courage. I know David spoke about courage at the beginning. Understanding this gave me the courage to make some quite big decisions to change how I was living at home, my work life, as well as my home life, as well as my work life. So what you can end up doing is not only putting your motivators in order from top to bottom, but also thinking about how important some of them might be. Because some of those motivators may well be much more important to you than others. And this particular person had really high builder. So she wanted to earn above average standard of living. Money was important at this point in her life. And she also wanted to make a difference and do something meaningful. But when we met, her motivation score was quite low. And she said, normally I'm a really energized person, but I'm not sure that what I'm doing is right at the minute. And when we did her profile, she really was scrabbling around financially and not earning what she felt she was worth. And when she saw this, she said, right, I've been thinking about getting a new job for ages. I'm actually going to go away and do it now because I know that this is what I need. And it sort of gave her the fire to go and make some changes in her life. Like me, she had low directors, so she wasn't looking for a role that had a huge amount of responsibility, but there were other things that she wanted to do that helped make her sense of why she was feeling how she was feeling. So if you look at your top card, Okay. Now, some of you might think, oh, I've probably got 2 that are really important. But if you look at the ones at the top, you will see on the back of that card, it will give you some strategies of what you can do to boost that motivator. If you have high searcher, how many people have got searcher at the top? Whoa, quite a lot of people, okay. If you have high searcher, then please, 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 really do some work on the purpose of your life. If anybody wants information on it, I can send you some free information on questions to ask yourself to really focus on your getting clear on your life's purpose. If you have high purpose, does your team have a purpose? Collectively, if that's important to you, do some work on team purpose or make sure it's aligned. The thing about the searcher, if you do have high searcher, is that one of the things that keeps your energy boosted is regular feedback. But a searcher rarely asks for feedback. But actually helping people understand, and a searcher might not be yours, but you might know some people where it's important, is giving them feedback on how they're making a difference keeps their energy up. Anybody with high spirit? Few people on spirit. Some people maybe not sure. Yeah, some high spirit. And this might seem a bit odd, because spirit is about freedom and independence. But sometimes when I'm coaching someone with high spirit, we actually talk about putting a structure in place. Because sometimes freedom's greatest when the boundaries are clearly defined. So having a structure, do it, delegate it, dump it, simplifying your life and your work, and freeing yourself up could be really important. And that could then support your goals for what you want to do. Have we got any creators in the audience? Yes? A lovely big smile, so that feels like it's very aligned with you. So, the creators are the ones to work on the innovative projects. Definitely make sure that you are keeping abreast of change. Probably love being ahead of the curve on things. Problem solving through innovation, working on an innovative project, key things to keep your energy high. Anyone an expert? Probably perfect that you're here at a training and learning, but training and development's really important. Even, reiterating what Dave said about find yourself a mentor. If you have high expert, maybe you offer mentoring to people, but get yourself a mentor too. Anyone with high builder? Yeah. So you may well want, after this, to go away and ask for a pay rise. You may want to think about, when's my next bonus coming? But equally, in this economic climate, the money might not be the only thing. But if you have high builder, the chances are you'll be really driven by being competitive. So it may well not be about the money. Maybe you've got to be creative in this, but can you get wins in other things in your life? Could you run that triathlon? Could you do something else that's competitive that is going to feed that builder energy? Okay? Director? No? Yes? Some people at the back I can see. So you might even want to ask for more responsibility. Look at how you can really take control over certain things or have a project that you can really drive. Stars. Yeah. So stars, it's good to get involved in high visible projects, things that will give your career a boost. And again, maybe this will just give you a bit of fire to think, what is my next goal? Is it visible enough? And what am I going to do about that? Friend? Yes, thank you very much. It's always good and to create, very friendly culture. The friend is very much about engaging and collaborating with others. So just make sure that the people that you work with and the people in your home life, you really feel connected enough with, and that you're having enough quality time with people, because that's really important. Anyone with defender? Yeah. So think about ways that will keep you feeling safe. And sometimes the defender, you might say, well, in this economic climate with so much change, it's hard to feel safe. But communication is really important for someone with defender. So even if you don't know what you don't know, at least having the conversation with someone makes them feel a bit better. So there's lots of different hot buttons that you can do to boost your motivation, but also minimize your low motivators. So what I'd just like you to leave you to think about is you can profile yourself and think about what motivates yourself. but you could take these cards away and maybe share them with other people, or maybe share them with your team. You know, we can add up all the scores for an individual person and collectively work on a team profile and look at what the team's got in common and maybe where it's different and where there might be conflicts because people are driven by different things. But maybe get your whole team to play it and work out where you feel you are. Or where does your organisation stand on this? You know, what are the drivers for you as an organisation, and how does that map to your organisational values? So I think really this is about thinking about who you are in your life and where you want to go. And if you think about the goals and where you are, then how can you use some of these motivators to light your fire? You know, because life's about thriving. However hard things are on the outside, it's what we can do on the inside. So it's your choices for what you want to do or how you might support other people to be the best they can be. So thank you very much for listening to the session.